I want you to get together.
Sorted, yeah. So go ahead. What do we want to talk about?
Okay, so first of all, I want to thank you because I found your channel like 3 weeks ago, and I was shocked to hear your thoughts about first of all gestures and basically beyond the veil being like this fractal, kaleidoscopic, basically the other dimension that some people may think it's hell or heaven, but in reality, it's just part of our world, but just the
Yeah.
messier part. So for me, when I heard your thoughts, it really made sense to me because first of all, I want to tell a little bit about my past. Before I came to faith, um, like truly, I truly came to faith. I was dabbling with a lot of a lot of things like meditation, psychedelics, all sorts of stuff, and this was I think 2 years before I really truly found Christ, and I had an experience with DMT, and I ended up in this surreal world that was fractal. There were these clown type of figures talking to me and trying basically to convince me that there were these spirit guides. So really quickly, I remember that I felt something was truly wrong, and then basically the whole reality around me just went like became hellish. And for me, I actually when that happened, I actually almost lost my life. There were other people around me when I had that like session with the DMT. My heart stopped. I stopped breathing, and I remember while I was in that DMT trip, I remember these demons literally telling me that, like, you screwed up and we got you now. So when I woke up, I remember the other guys. At that moment, I realized that all these things about spirit guides and these nice and spirits that want to develop humankind to next evolution, all that was just crap. In reality, there are demons. And at that moment, I actually thought it was too late because they were like taunting me and felt like my soul was being ripped apart. And the way I got out of there was I was pleading to God to help me, and I would never touch any psychedelics anymore, ever in my life. And it was, I think, almost a snap. Then I started getting out of that DMT trip. But the scariest part was when I woke up. First of all, I was shocked. I couldn't say a word. But I looked at the guys around me, and they told me, and they were terrified. They looked at me and they told me that you were convulsing, your eyes were rolling in your head, and you were talking some weird language that they described it as like Lord of the Rings orc language. So they were telling me like you sounded like an orc in Lord of the Rings movies. And then they told me that after the convulsing happened and all the other stuff, I stopped breathing, and they truly thought I was dead. And that connected exactly with the experience I had inside of the trip when at first it was all beautiful, nice, fractal scenery and these beings just showing me some weird colors and stuff and like geometry. And after like I realized like something's wrong, it's like they stopped the act. They stopped acting immediately and told me directly, like, okay, you got it now. So we got you. It's too late for you. So that's why like that was like I think 8 to 10 years ago. So now after all those years finding your channel and you talking about gestures and clowns and all the points you have been saying in your videos, it really connected a lot of things. And I realized like, it's exactly what I suspected it to be. And because my childhood, I had a Christian background. We went to church. I believed in God, but I've been always too curious for my own detriment. So uh, in my teenage years, I started thinking to myself like I have to find a way to prove myself that God really exists, that demons exist. And I was really curious and just basically waiting for the opportunity to have a chance to play around with maybe psychedelics or spiritualism, like the Ouija board and all these things. But
Mm.
still, because I was quite young in my teenage years, I felt like I should not go there. That might be too dangerous. So it was only after because I used to work in the entertainment business, and there were a lot of people there who basically influenced me in a way to go really deep in the new age. I meditated it like trance meditation, yoga, all these things. And that was basically a gateway for me to go deeper and deeper into these like shamanic spiritualist things, which eventually led me to DMT and that experience that I just described. So this was like a short version of my testimony, just to some viewers who might maybe think like, what is all this talk about gestures and this other dimension that is connected to ours, but it's just behind the veil. Because I truly had an experience that you explain perfectly with your videos. So that's the first part. The second the reason I want to call is actually to ask you questions about this Nephilim spirits and Rephaim, because I heard in the interview with you and Gary Wayne, because I was familiar with the word Nephilim, but then you also used the word Rephaim, and I really didn't pick up, maybe understand clearly what was the clear difference between Nephilim and Rephaim.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Well, first of all, thanks for sharing your testimony. Your story is very similar to a lot of people's stories. It's great that you found Christ in all of this. Seldom, not many actually do. A lot of people keep going back for more abuse from these monsters on the other side of this veil. So it's great that you actually took the right message from it, and you found the truth in all of that, which is wonderful. And I'm glad my work has helped you in some way as well. That's edifying to know. As for the Rephaim question, from what I understand, Gary Wayne explained it as this. So first of all, you can know the difference just by the etymology of the names. So Nephilim, first of all, is from root of two words in the Hebrews, which is Nephil and Nephal. Nephil means tyrannical ruler or giant. It's both. It can be applied to both. And also Nephal means to fall. Now, a lot of people misinterpret that and think, well, that must mean fallen angels. So Nephilim are fallen angels. It's not. It literally means Nephilim is the plural version of tyrannical giant rulers of a fallen nature. That's all it means. So that's what the Nephilim, these giant tyrannical kings that took over everything and subjugated mankind on behalf of their parents, the fallen angels. That's the Nephilim. They were before the flood. Now, after the flood, we have what are known as Rephaim appearing. And this is maybe I don't know a good 1,000 years after the flood initially, and when the lands of Canaan are just full of these giants the size of cedar trees as described in Numbers, and people were like grasshoppers in the sights of them, but they called them the Rephaim. There was also a place called the Valley of the Rephaim as well in Canaan, and the word Rephaim basically means if you want to translate it into modern English, I would say it's something more akin to zombie. But it basically means an undead one, or a healed one, or healer of some kind, is how it's often related in actual Hebrew, is healer, or healed ones. So that's implying that the Rephaim are in some way, shape, or form like a resurrected giant. They're like a dead or walking dead creature. A creature that can heal so fast and has like an undead property to it in some way. So it's likely the Rephaim. I theorized on what this could mean. Could it literally be the risen dead bodies of the giants that were killed before the flood? They managed to inhabit their body once more after the flood? Were they just floating around? You know what I mean? And once the waters receded, these giant bodies were just strewn all over the place, and somehow they were resurrected and became Rephaim, became healed ones, became, the resurrected dead, the dead ones, or something like that. And that's how the Nephilim came back. It's not really clear, but one direct reason why they were called Rephaim or healers is because they seem to have this property of being able to heal very quickly from like a stab wound, let's say, or a slash or a cut. And as Gary tried to explain, you had to remove the head from the body to guarantee they wouldn't regenerate. To sever that ability for them to come back basically and then not die, and if they're just a head, then they can't hurt you with their body anymore, type of situation. Do you get what I mean? So obviously, when David killed Goliath, the first thing he did was cut off the head and hold it up to everybody, and the Philistines ran basically from the sight of this. But it's interesting because the Gorgon of Greek mythology, what Perseus decapitated her once he managed to fool her with the mirror. That you've got to take out the head, and that's the modern zombie mythos, isn't it? Like we have in zombie films today, like The Walking Dead. Like you have to shoot them in the head to kill them.
Exactly.
In Resident Evil, the undead, you have to shoot them in the head to kill them. So the Rephaim are literally, like I said, a classical version of zombies. It's basically what I've come to the conclusions of just from the etymology of the word and the description of how they behaved. And it may also equate to the whole having incredibly white, pale, vampiric skin like an undead creature. Like, I suppose a vampire in many ways is a Rephaim. It's the same thing, it's the same principle. Even in modern vampire movies, they heal incredibly quick. They drink blood just like the Nephilim. They have a dead, undead quality to them, like pale skin, like a body that's been resurrected in some way. That it's the same. We're talking about the same creatures, just with different names throughout history. But the Rephaim of the past were giants as well. They had that going for them. So that's basically what I can riff for you there to explain the difference between a Rephaim and a Nephilim. Does that answer your question?
Oh, definitely, definitely. And the zombie thing, and one that came to my mind was Golem, because knowing
Yeah.
that the Golem story that from Kabbalah and it stems back to Babylonian era, so close to Nimrod era. So it really makes sense, and I think all these things connect really well with each other, and just like take different shapes and forms. And I like the pictures you showed actually now on your stream, because I wanted to mention also I have an African background from East Africa and Central Africa, so
Mm-hmm.
I'm really aware of a lot of stories and mythos that is really present and talked about. That was talked about to me when I was a younger child, like all the masks and representing these ancestral spirits. And another thing about it also, I've noticed that this word, I don't know if you have heard this new trendy thing going on now called ancestral living. So it's like I think it's like an offshoot of this. Like a lot of people, my new age acquaintances have been talking to me about this ancestral living and how they're going back to the ancestors, and also like this spiritual aspect in it too. So I'm really seeing that these past years, and I truly believe the times to come, these things are going to be connecting it more and more as we see how things progress.
Absolutely. I believe in Ghana, which I think is West Africa, if I'm correct there. I'm not sure. Um, I think they have this new political movement going on right now called it's called a new something. I can't remember what it is. But they're basically all wearing ancestor spirit worship masks that look just like clowns. And I think they're hiding behind the politics of that area, kind of like they're trying to bring in this new era of politics, to take over from the old system, the old ways. It's like the phoenix rising out of the ashes type symbolism. And I found it interesting that they're literally wearing what look like clown masks, but obviously African ancestor spirit worship style masks as well. So
Yes,
maybe that comes
and it's
into this
really
whole,
popular.
yeah, this
It's a
reintroduction
super
into.
popular movement right now. It's spreading. It's not only in that country. It's also in Kenya, and because I'm half Kenyan and half Congolese,
Mhm.
in Kenya also there's a political group that is. I think I don't know which came first, but they also have this. They're covering their faces with masks, talking about like connecting to the root of African spirit and their ancestors. So that like this African spiritualism, it's also like growing in popularity
Mhm.
within the young people in Africa, and like this rebellious spirit of we have been put down and Christianity was bestowed upon us and it's all a lie. So we have to go even deeper to our history and dig out this ancestor spirit and guidance from there and find our true identity within who we are.
Yeah, it was called the New Force in Ghana, and it is very much what you just described there. It's about going back to our original roots, reinventing, our ancestor spirit practices into a modern age, and obviously remembering who we are historically, but with the new modern twist type of angle. And I'm not surprised it's traveling all over Africa. That would make sense. If you can send me any links to maybe the geographical locations this is going on, any examples, I'd be happy to see them. If you have any examples outside of the Ghana election situation, then yeah, send it across my way. Absolutely, I'd be fascinated in seeing these things. It's funny though because from my research, the one in Ghana was actually the whole campaign was kind of designed and orchestrated by a Belgian woman who who basically is currently in prison in Ghana because she claimed to be coming to the country to study, and the visa was it's like on a false visa basically.
Interesting.
They've got her, and now she's in prison in Ghana, obviously under this pretense of having a false visa, but everyone's saying it's to silence the movement, and all this type of stuff. I find it interesting that there's this European influence in trying to regenerate ancestor spirit worship culture in a relatively politically going forward part of developing part of Africa. You know what I mean? And it's just bizarre. It just seems like it's a bizarre turn of events, and I don't. There's a lot of stuff going on there right now with that situation. But the aesthetics behind the movement are very much old world Nephilim-esque ancestor spirit worship. Um,
Yeah,
and Africa is just full of it. Next to India, them two parts of the world, they are rooted in their ancestor spirit worship. Is there any insight into that practice you can give us from somebody who's obviously lived it themselves and been around there? I mean, just how seriously do these people still take it in those parts of the world?
that's yeah. You're totally right in that, and they truly believe it. Like if I go to Kenya or Congo, it's not a joke. People really truly believe in these things. So it's not like in Western countries, it might be just like the superficial trendy thing. Like I'm spiritual and a little bit of
Mm.
this, little bit of that. But there they take it seriously. It's like if some people think like Muslims uh, take their faith seriously, they take these things super seriously, like witchcraft, magic, ancestor, spiritualism in the in the darkest form also. So yes,
Mhm.
I
What's
agree with
the
that. But
Sorry, go ahead.
sorry.
I'll let you finish. Go
Uh,
ahead.
yeah, I was just mentioning that I will have to leave soon because it's 1 a.m. I was actually going to sleep. I was listening to your stream to fall asleep. I have a habit of doing that. Then I was like, oh no, I actually have to call because I was wanting to call before too. But I'll let you say what you were about to say. I'm not in a rush because I just got too excited now.
No, I just want to know, from your experience, what's the main goal of getting in touch with their ancestor spirits? What are they trying to get out of it from your experience?
Power, self power to themselves and control. It's really rooted in power, and
Yes.
and also because many people there they don't have as much opportunities as we have in Western countries, and so it's really easy to try to seek power in this lifetime from witchcraft, and many of them feel betrayed by church,
Hmm.
and they feel like church is not giving them anything. They don't really it's really interesting because there are a lot of people who have a really deep connection with God. But on the other side, too, there are a lot of people who feel like they have been betrayed by the institution of church and they are living in poverty. They are not, they are having difficulties finding ends meet
Hmm.
to survive. So it's like it's for many of them, it's a natural path, like a logical way to think. Like if God is not going to give me what I want, if I'm not going to survive, this person, this witch doctor or whoever here is telling me that if I sacrifice or do this or that or do these rituals, I will gain enough power in this lifetime that I can make a change in my own life. But it's usually rooted in self gratification, getting self power to themselves, control over others. So that, from my experience, what I've had conversations with people there, with my grandmother, and also knowing about my own past. Um, a little tidbit I can tell you is that my great grandfather, so my mother's grandfather, he was a Freemason, a master Mason, a really high ranking one. And I
Mhm.
actually heard this from my mother only when I was 23 years old. And yeah, and that's the topic to another time. But his mother, she used to be, so she would be like my great great grandmother, I think. She used to be in the area they were living, like this, some kind of great witch or someone who people like from like village leaders, politicians went to her to seek advice. The story goes that she talked to serpents, like like really talked, communicated with serpents, and some crazy stories that I've heard. So I'm basically all my information comes from basically little bit of information I've gone gathered from my travels to Kenya and talking with my relatives and people around there and trying to understand like the motivations behind it and get a deeper grasp of why is it still present in Africa so strongly. And yeah, I think in YouTube there's a documentary about like because now there's like a lot of music coming from Africa, a lot of musicians like Afrobeat, Afro pop, and there was a documentary talking about this, about the rituals many of these artists do quite openly, and even engage with their audience to promote certain type of rituals they can do themselves. So these are the reasons why when I was younger, I was really interested in finding out mainly my own roots, where I come from, and those were the big surprises that I stumbled upon, but also understanding the culture, widely the culture in Africa, why it's so different from what I've lived in
Mhm.
Europe. So yeah.
Yeah, well, I'd love for you to, in the future, if you want to maybe get some information together about the things you did learn from obviously the grandfather you were talking about there as well. Um, Share it with me some other time. I know it's late for you right now, and off the top of your head, you might not be able to, gather all that information together quite clearly. But yeah, I'm happy for you to come back anytime and share any information you have about that culture with us, because
Oh,
who am I? I'm just some white guy from the north of England. You know what I mean? I only know what I can read. If someone who has more experience is going to be far more of an authority in it than I can. But in
well,
terms of you witness these people are going after power. They want to get something from the entities, from the ancestors, to further their lives and gain power and influence. From your experience as well, does it actually work out for them?
to some degree, yes, but also it comes with a cost. It really comes with a cost. And what I see, what I've heard from my family lineage, it really makes them crazy. So the sacrifices they have to make really creates a lot of destruction around them, and it really doesn't benefit them. They may get some wealth, some power, and feeling that they have influence, but it really, really creates more destruction around them.
Yeah, sounds about right, doesn't it? Right. Well, I'll let you go. I'll let you get to sleep. Thanks for calling in. That was an amazing conversation. Thanks for sharing. And yeah, we'll definitely speak to you again. But you get some sleep. You don't have to just listen to me all
Yeah.
night. Go get some sleep. All right. this will
Okay,
be
okay,
this
I'll
will
go
be
back to
here
bed.
for you in the morning. This all goes straight to YouTube anyway, so don't worry about it. Thanks for calling in. I really appreciate that. Thanks for sharing
Thank
it.
you for letting me in. Thank you. Bye.
No problem at all. Bye now.
I want you to get together.